start. I was game and you took aim and struck me through my heart. Now I'm trapped in the web of love. Trapped in the web of love. Trapped,
You are listening to Share a Slice with Sean.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Share a Slice with Sean. So this show's a really special one. I have an interview with author and artist Alexis Hunter, and she's calling in from Joshua Tree in the middle of the desert in California. Press of the 1960s and the 1970s believed that she was the sister of the famous television actress Joi Lansing, but in reality, she was actually the secret lover of Joi Lansing. She recently published a book about this called A Body to Die For. The reason for that title is because Joi Lansing, she died from an easily preventable cancer. And the reason for this is just all the pressure that was put on actresses back in the 1960s and the 1970s in Hollywood. It was really a man's world back then. And if you were a woman trying to make it in Hollywood, well, a lot of them did a lot of crazy things like inject silicone directly into their bloodstream, directly into their body. So we're going to learn about that from Alexis Hunter, and we're going to learn a lot of really interesting stories about Joi Lansing, and I'm sure you will recognize Joi from at least one of her dozens, if not hundreds, of television appearances. There will be a simulcast of this podcast on YouTube with pictures, a sort of a slideshow, and some films playing along with the interview. So you can either listen to it here because it's convenient, or you can go to YouTube. There'll be a link in the show notes, and you can watch the episode with all of the various footage as well. So without further ado, let's jump right into the interview with author Alexis Hunter.
She was considered the Marilyn Monroe of television. She did all the sitcoms, just about every show, and that was why so many people recognized her. At that time, there were only three TV stations, ABC, NBC, and CBS, and she was on every network, working constantly.
She was on something called The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet in the 50s. And I mean, I guess some of these wouldn't really resonate with some of the people these days, but she was also with Frank Sinatra on Marriage on the Rocks as well. So she's been just on absolutely everything, just ubiquitous, basically.
I mean, people today can see her on reruns of I Love Lucy, which, is pretty well known.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. And the Beverly Hillbillies. She was a regular on Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah, Gladys, right? That was her character name?
Gladys Flat. They thought that was very funny.
She impressed upon Lucy so much that Lucy actually wanted to give Joi a contract at one point to have her work for the studio on a more regular basis. And
sure she did. She recognized Joy's comedic talent. Yes, she was very sexy. She was one of the blonde bombshells, but she had a great comedic talent because she played everything deadpan. She took, very seriously. She was funny. She was very, very funny. And she wasn't threatening to people. Women liked her and men liked her, so it was a good thing. But unfortunately, Joi had bad management, and her last husband was her manager at the time and told her, "Are you serious? You're too good for I Love Lucy or Lucille Ball. you don't want this. So he turned down the contract, which was a tragedy. She could have done so much more.
This was the same studio that did Star Trek back in the day too. So it's,
yes, yeah.
You did more than just write this book. Like, it's not some biography that you wrote from a distance. You actually lived what's in this book, because after idolizing Joi since her beginnings in the 1950s, like, you actually fell in love with Joi on the television screen. You actually, through some fluke of fate, managed to meet Joi, and then I basically begin a love story with Joi undercover. I mean, I think that's the real meat. Let's get to that. How did you meet Joi Lansing? Yeah,
it's an amazing thing. When I was a kid, living in Kansas, I was just fascinated by Joi. I thought she was just the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, and I would rush home from school to watch her show whenever it was on. Later on, my family moved from Kansas to California, and I finished school and decided I wanted to be an actress. So I moved to Hollywood, and I lived at the Studio Club. Are you familiar with the Hollywood Studio Club, Sean?
No. Is it some sort of dorm type situation?
Yeah. It was where all the young actresses lived. I lived there at the same time Farrah Fawcett and Sandy Duncan and Sally Struthers lived there, and they did a little bit more than I did, actually. it was fun. Yeah. They may have been a little bit more famous, but I did Bigfoot, and that's how the Stinko film Bigfoot, and that's how I met Joi. A friend of mine had a part in the film and called me one day and said, "I cannot wear this stinking monkey suit one more day. Do you want the job?" So I said, "Of course," because I knew this was going to be my big break. And so I met the producer and director, and I got the job. And I show up early in the morning because this was a real low-budget film. I mean, my God. And I'm there sitting, getting in this monkey suit, getting hair, this fake fur glued to my face and my hands. And they sprayed me with like black spray paint. It was just hideous. And in walks the most beautiful woman I had ever seen, and that was Joi. Joi was the star of the show. And she sat down next to me. They were doing, just touching up her makeup. Oh, my God. She was the sweetest person I had ever met in my life. And we became friends. I would help her with her lines. Yeah, if you do film, it is hurry up and wait, and you just sit in between takes. And I would spend a lot of time with her, and she was just so unbelievably sweet and kind, not pretentious. She was, my God, she was an angel.
I looked on the listing, and this would have been maybe the last movie that Joi made, like movie-wise.
Yeah, it was the last film that she did. It was the last film she did. It was in 1969.
Right.
And I think it was released in 70 or 71.
Yeah.
They had to do a lot of work on it, and that really didn't help too much if you ever see it. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Not a great film.
And the only thing that this film, I think, served in the grand scheme of things is it got you guys together, because I remember reading in the book that you actually drove up in your old beater car, and you parked
right.
it far away from the set because you didn't want anybody to see you
I didn't
in
want
this
anybody
car.
to see it. I used to, of course not.
And then you went in there and you got dressed up like this monkey, and I think Joi basically said, "Oh, you poor dear," or something like that.
Right. She felt sorry for me. She knew I was miserable. Oh, and they put these stupid plastic fangs in your mouth.
Right. So you probably couldn't speak properly, and you're kind of drooling.
No. And she, right. And she still was nice to me. The following morning, I decided I was going to get there, and I got all dolled up, and so she could see that I wasn't a monster. Just, for the hell of it, and I did, and she was taken, which was really nice. It was really nice, and we became super good friends.
Yeah, she had a husband, Stan Todd,
right,
and he was a bit aloof. Let's put it that way. So she was kind of just, lonely.
They were not living together. I mean, they separated in '65, and Joi had her own place on La Cienega and Fountain, called Fountain View West. He was more like a father to her. So that was their relationship. I mean, he was a real character. He loved being around celebrities. That was his thing. It made him feel important. He would say he was a producer, even though he didn't do any producing that I'm aware of. So
he played a lot of tennis, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, he was big in tennis and big in name dropping.
Having Joi Lansing on his arm was fantastic, but I mean, it turns out that the person that Joi Lansing really had on her arm was you, because you guys, you and Joi, basically became lovers, and this was under. I still can't believe that Stan never figured this one out, but
he didn't.
Yeah, you and Joi became soulmates, basically.
And we did.
You moved in, I think, pretty much immediately.
Right away. I mean, it was bingo. Yeah, after the film wrap, we spent time together. And do you remember reading about me working in the Go-Go bar?
Yes, I remember that.
That was fun. Yeah. I was living at the studio club, and one of the girls had a job working in a Go-Go bar, a real dive in Hollywood. It was her birthday, and she didn't want to do it, so she asked me if I wanted to do it. And I said, of course. That was another one of my big breaks. I knew that was going to, some big producer was going to see me there. So there I am, and getting ready to do that, and I called Joi and I said, because at that time she was dating Sid Caesar, and they were having this illicit affair. And
who is it again?
I said,
Sid Caesar, okay.
Right, and he was a big comedian at the time on television, did tons of work. And I said, maybe you and Sid could come and see me. And so and she said, well, let me check. And so there I am in my go-go boots, in a little bikini, standing on this little platform in this smoke-filled dive, dancing to this recorded music. In walks Joi. Dressed to the nines, mink coat, the whole bit, full makeup, and she walks in and everybody's jaw drops. And she sits, there are chairs around the platform, and she sits right in front of me. Oh my God. And as I'm in shock. And suddenly the tune Temptations, My Girl plays, and I'm dancing to this, and we just started looking at each other. And that was it. And she calls me to whisper something to me, and I lean over, and she says, "You don't belong here. Let's get out of here." So I just got off the stage, and we just booked. I just left and went over to her place. I was just listening to music by her fireplace, and she kissed me, and that was it. That was the beginning of the relationship, and I never left until she died.
Well, I mean, anybody getting kissed by Joi Lansing, I mean, I can understand that.
Oh my God, Sean, I gotta tell you, I am the luckiest person on the planet.
It's like something from some sort of fairy tale. I mean,
it was a fairy tale. It was a fairy tale. My God. I mean, this kid from Kansas suddenly is with the most beautiful woman on earth who absolutely loves you. Amazing. And Joi was straight. That was the very interesting part of the deal. She loved men, and she'd been married 3 times, and was always dating some really interesting guy. Howard Hughes, Sinatra. She dated a lot of the important men, and I just came into her life at a time when it was right. And she fell in love with me as a person. It wasn't a sexual thing. It was, I mean, it's hard to explain, but I think you understand, Sean.
Yeah,
it was just magic. It was magic. It was magic.
If you fall in love with a person, then I mean,
right.
You express your love with your body, and you know, if you happen to have a female or a male body, I mean, or something in between, then that's you do it, right? I mean,
absolutely, and I'm so happy you understand, because some people might not understand, but it was just the timing was right. The timing was right for her. It was right for me, and it was good. And at that point in her life, and especially since she became ill, that she needed someone who would be nurturing and kind, and more of the feminine energy work.
Right, caring. Yeah, for healing purposes. I mean, and even Marilyn Monroe made a pass on her.
Yes, she did, and it scared Joy. Marilyn asked her if she wanted to go to Palm Springs with her, and Joy just went panic time, and then said, "No, I have plans, but thank you."
That's another thing that fascinates me, because I have this very how should I put it, milquetoast kind of sanitized view, Leave It to Beaver kind of image of the 50s and the 60s, the Partridge Family and all this kind of stuff.
Sure.
I mean, it must have been widely known that when Marilyn Monroe said, "Hey, wanna come hang out with me," it actually meant, "Hey, wanna go have some fun, wanna go for a tumble."
Sure. In fact, it was interesting with the studios at that time, there was no birth control. The studios were so invested financially in their female stars, they sort of turned a blind eye to homosexuality in the business. There were a lot of gay and bisexual stars, because they didn't want their female stars to get pregnant. They were scared to death, because that would have killed their careers. A lot of things happened, as they would say now, on the down low. Even though being gay at that time would have destroyed everybody. If anyone found out, that's the whole problem. If anyone found out, their careers would have been toast. That would have been the end of them. And that's why Joy and I had to assume a sister's act. I became her younger sister.
You became Rachel Lansing rather than Nancy Hunter. Yeah. Right.
Joy took me to meet Joey Bishop, who was a really good friend of hers. And she did all of his shows. Joey was just a really nice guy. And he said, "You don't look like a Nancy. You look like a Rachel. So you should be Rachel." So Joy said, "Oh, yeah, she should be Rachel." So from that point on, I was Rachel. I was Joy's sister, Rachel. And we could pull it off because we were both blonde, had exactly the same color eyes. I was taller, but that didn't seem to matter. So that's how we got away with it. And no one ever suspected, at least not that I'm aware of. And we were around gossip columnists, Rona Barrett and other people, and no one ever said anything or, intimated anything sort of nasty about our relationship, which was great because we kept it very cool.
It seemed like such a strange time. I mean, and I'm kind of mixing up the decades here because I'm coming at it from someone who's much younger. But I mean, even looking at some of her parts in, like, for instance, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, called Uninvited Guests. That's where she is the sexy daughter of I think it's the friends of the Johnsons who come and visit them, and she goes and she's like, "Wow, you really know how to do golf or something." And I think it was
funny. That's the funniest skit.
Well, I don't remember the man so very well, but I sure remember his wife all right. She was a real shapely blonde. You see, Oz was out on the putting green minding his own business, or at least that's what he claimed.
Hi.
Oh, good morning.
Isn't it a beautiful day?
Well, yes, it certainly is.
I thought I'd play a little golf this morning.
Oh, well, good for you. You've got a nice day for it.
The only thing is, though, I've never played before. Do you know anything about the game?
Oh, well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I've played at it for quite a few years.
Oh, I bet you played beautifully.
What makes you say that?
Oh, I don't know. You just look like the athletic type.
Oh, well, actually, golf is, I mean, it's a strange sort of a game.
Yes, they say that putting is the most important part of the game.
Well, no, all the strokes are important. Of course, it is true, if you want to score well, you've got to putt well.
Oh, isn't that cute?
What is?
What you just said. If you want to score well, you've got to putt well.
Oh.
Oh, I must remember that. If you want to score well, you've got to putt well. Do you have a pencil? I'd love to write that down.
Oh, actually, it isn't that complicated. All you do is just tap the ball into the cup.
Would you show me, please? You seem to make everything sound so interesting.
Well...
are you expecting someone?
Well, I was expecting my caddy. Well, okay. Just tap the ball into the cup here.
Okay. Are you watching me?
Yes, I'm watching.
Am I bending over far enough?
I would say you are definitely from this angle.
Oh, I didn't do that very well at all, did I?
Well, that wasn't too bad because you hit the ball a little too hard. See, you have to stroke it firmly but gently.
Would you show me, please?
Well, there we are. Now, don't grip the club too tight. That's it. Just,
May I take you?
That is so
And
funny.
he's there, and he's like, he's helping her grip, and he's like, well, you need to have a firm grip on the rod, and you need to, you need to stroke, you need to do the stroke properly, and get the ball in the cup, and the whole thing. And I'm like, the amount of the 50s were weird because it seems like
they were weird.
And a lot of these jokes were very, I have some friends who are Mormon, and it was almost like I was talking to them. It's like everybody was very kind of, I guess, repressed. So the jokes about sex were very awkward.
And television. I mean, everybody had to be in a twin bed. There was no touching. I mean, you never saw people in a bed together on TV or films. It was, the ratings, they were not allowed. And so it was repressed, and everything was sort of like tongue-in-cheek.
Whether she liked it or not, it was like a double-edged sword. It was her boon, and it was her sort of bane, is that they had her on, for instance, this show as the sexy piece, I guess. She's always sort of cast as being the Lilith, wicked witch, tempting, sultry, lust-filling bad guy in a lot of these shows, I find.
Yeah, she was. I mean, in a lot of things, she was just window dressing. I mean, they'd have her for all the promotion, and they'd play off of her sex appeal. She did a lot of work. But unfortunately, like Monroe was so upset about not being able to do serious parts. Joy studied with Strasberg, and she was actually a very good actress, very, very good actress, but she wasn't able to really use her acting chops.
Oh my goodness!
Very much.
I was watching some of these shows. I'm really picking on the Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet here, but I mean, the thing.
Yeah, and by the way, I asked her who she thought was the sexiest man, in film and television, and I expected to hear some, gorgeous hunky
or
guy,
something. Yeah,
somebody like that. No, guess who? Ozzie. Ozzie Nelson. She thought he was the sexiest guy in the business.
You got to wonder where she's coming from, though, like what she's looking for. I was just almost skipping forward for her because she had a lot more depth. Like the stories were so boring for some of these shows, like, because they were being put on by, Quaker Oats, and Quaker Oats, heavens to Betsy, they would never want to insult or offend anybody with their bland oatmeal of whatever. She would often be the one that colored the story, and she would be like everybody's excuse to think sexy thoughts or to say sexy things on the show. Because they cast her this way, in this sort of very, puritanical kind of environment, at least on television, in her real life, she had problems too, because wherever she went, she had to dress the part, I guess, for her act. Oh, yeah. Right? But that meant that she was sexualized no matter where she went, including the doctor's office, which ultimately spelt her doom towards the end.
It was terrible. Yeah, everywhere we would go. First of all, she would not leave the house unless she was perfect, because there's an undercurrent to the book about what was really happening in Hollywood, and the pressure to be the most beautiful, the pressure to be young, the pressure to be glamorous and perfection. You couldn't have a wrinkle. You couldn't show age. You had to be always sexy, always on, always gorgeous. And it took its toll. It took its toll on everybody, especially the more beautiful women, because the fear of growing old, the fear of not working, when that's your whole life and that is your dream, as it was for Joi, there was so much pressure. So she wouldn't leave the house unless she was just absolutely dressed to the nines, and she always had to have that, always had to be on. But she was always friendly with people, always nice and kind, because she was not who she portrayed on the screen. She was not that person. She was the sweet little girl. She was just a sweet little girl who was in this body that she partially created, and that's another part of the story. Sean.
Yeah. She felt so much pressure, and I know that many women have felt that, and many women do feel that, and especially with the Me Too movement as well, the Me Too movement. She actually went and got her breasts and her buttocks and perhaps other parts augmented with these crooked doctors who injected her with silicone. I never heard of this before, because when I was growing up, I heard about the bags that would sometimes leak and that caused problems.
The use of silicone started, from my research, right after World War II in Japan. The Japanese women wanted to
have big boobs.
They wanted to attract the GIs.
Right.
And American men, God love them, love big boobs. So somehow or other, someone decided that there was one of those great big barrels of silicone, and someone thought, well, maybe this would be good. And so they started injecting it. When Joi did it, she and Sinatra went, I think she did it first. She went to a doctor who injected her. It's like instantaneous. Suddenly you have bigger boobs. And she went there with Sinatra, and he had some in his face, and that's why his face was so lumpy toward the end. Mm-hmm. And so that augmented her chest. It was terrible. It's a terrible thing, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book. They're doing it now, Sean. And Joi didn't have it in her bottom. She concentrated on the upstairs, not the downstairs. They weren't starting implants at that point. Right. So for a woman to have these great big, hooters, it was just like a calling card. People went crazy over this.
Especially with the brassieres back then, the crazy.
Oh my God, the pointed ones, the bullet things. Oh my God, they're scary.
Tight sweaters and giant cones. You're afraid a laser beam's going to come flying out of them or something?
Well, it could happen. It could happen. So, scary stuff. So, but silicone is the most hideous stuff. It causes so many problems, so many health problems. And I got to stop them. I have to stop these people who are doing it. And I hope that somebody out there, if you're listening, if you're thinking of having silicone in your breast or your bottom or your face, please don't do it.
Is it against the law now, or is it happening underground?
It's underground. It's never been legal, especially in, my God, this stuff migrates. You can have great big boobs one day and have fat ankles, down the line. I mean, and it's terrible, and it's hard to remove. It's very, very difficult to remove. In fact, there's a doctor in Florida now who specializes in doing this because so many people are having it done because, right now they're doing fillers, they're doing the Botox and Juvederm and Restylane, and these things are fillers. They fill in the lines in your face, and some people, instead of spending money every 6 weeks or whatever, whenever you need to redo it, because it's expensive. Well, they hear about, I have a friend who has a friend who does this, and it's permanent.
It's not like Botox, yeah.
No, it's cheap. So these people are fascinated by it, and they do it. And, my God, they suffer. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. And to remove this crap, sometimes you can remove it, sometimes you can't. It's frightening. It's just frightening.
Sadly, she even brought you. She didn't know, obviously. But
she didn't know.
She brought you into, I think it was a New York doctor.
Yeah, a doctor. And I use the word loosely. A doctor, Dr. Risch. I'll never forget this guy.
He brought out this enormous syringe, and he not only injected Joi, he also injected you. I
had one injection in each breast. And the first one was, because they injected underneath from the bottom, underneath the breast. And the first one was no problem. The second one, I could feel like the tissue tearing. Ugh. And it was just hideous. And I thought, oh, crap, what have I done? I knew it right then and there. I knew this was the biggest mistake of my life. And it was. And I didn't have any more injections. And it didn't change my boobs at all. They were not any larger. All it did was make me lose them at 26 years old. So
26 years old. And
I was 26.
How old were you when you got the injections?
I was 21.
Jeez.
I was 21. I mean, I was, it was done innocently, by me and Joi. She didn't know, and I was naive, and I thought, it was just a big, stupid mistake, but I don't want anybody else to make the same mistake, because I've had 4 reconstructions, and by the 4th one, they started to look like shoeboxes. I'm serious. They were just
better cut your losses.
I should cut my losses and cut them off. So I got, what price beauty, or
that was the reoccurring story though, because then, I mean, in 1972, not for a spoiler, but I'll give one here anyway. 1972, Joi unfortunately passed away of cancer as a direct result of that, and
I believe it was, and
the estrogen.
And another thing, the estrogen, that was the gasoline on the fire. When she was in her 30s, she went to a doctor who. And she says, I can't grow old. What can I do? He says, take this. And so he gave her an open-ended prescription for Premarin, estrogen. And even though her body was producing plenty of it, and he didn't say, you only take it so much, and then you go, and then you don't take it. No, she took it every single day. And I know that and the combination of the silicone and all, she ended up with breast and ovarian cancer.
God.
And it was just hideous.
The Orson Welles story was 1958, and that was all about the fountain of youth. It was all about her and her, oddly enough, tennis star boyfriend.
How funny is that? Yeah.
Wanting to live forever, and they had this vial that they wanted to drink for that. You know, it's just kind of interesting that the parallel there, and it makes me wonder with the timing if maybe that film like reinforced whatever kind of insecurity she had.
Probably, you're right. I didn't even think about it, Sean. Yeah, I think you're right.
Because she would have been filming that, and if you watch the movie, the way it plays out is just interesting, because you have this doctor who falls in love with her character, and out of spite, he gives them this vial of eternal life because he can't have her, because her boyfriend, who is this tennis star, is with her instead. It's a combination of her yearning to always be young and always be beautiful, in combination with being famous, and these doctors who would rather date her and would rather have her have perky breasts, I think, than actually be healthy in a way.
When she was starting to have health problems, and we'd go to doctors, and because of her beauty, I mean, that's why I wrote the title of the book, Body to Die For. Her body was her demise. I mean, it was so important to her, but it also killed her. These doctors, they lost their
faculties, right? They did.
Suddenly, excuse me, and then they bring in the other doctors in the office just to talk to her, just to look at her. They forgot about why she was there.
You think that the book would be kind of depressing, but the book is not. The book is like a celebration of...
It was a celebration of a wonderful, wonderful life. And we had a blast, Sean. We had a great life.
It's hard to believe it was only 2 years, like 2 or 3 years.
It was a total amount that we were together was like 3.5 years. I wrote the book so it wouldn't be a downer, because it wasn't. We had a spectacular life together. And we did so many things. We went to Vegas. She starred in Vegas. We were around some of the most really cool people, big stars and fabulous people. Liberace and Elvis. I mean,
James Brown.
Elvis kissed me. Do you believe that? Elvis kissed me.
Wow.
That is too cool. Dean Martin and my God, Steve Lawrence, Edie Gourmet, James Brown, just great people. What kid from Kansas has this experience? Hello.
And that's the thing, like, she didn't act in any more movies, really, after Bigfoot. I mean, that probably was the nail in her coffin for movies, in a way. But she did a lot of, in Vegas, for instance, she did a musical or a show.
She did a stage play. She did Come Blow Your Horn.
Yeah, and Vegas. She was a phenomenal singer too. She had this amazing sort of alto baritone kind of voice. Like, she could really dig in there.
Very sexy, wonderful voice. She was a wonderful singer. In fact, toward the end of her career, that's what she did primarily. She had a nightclub act, and she appeared all over the country, and she went to Australia, and she got tremendous reviews because nobody expected her to be able to sing. They thought, little bimbo.
Yeah, Marilyn Monroe, poor Marilyn,
Oh, my God, yeah. But Joi was a singer.
Yeah.
Amazing singer. And when we were in Vegas, when she was doing Come Blow Your Horn, Lainey Kazan, I don't know if she was ill or something happened, and they called her from the Sahara and asked her if she wanted to fill in, and so she did. And that was the first time she actually sang with a full orchestra, and that was the highlight of her life. It was great. She did great. She was ready. She was going to sign a contract for an album. She was going to do that, and then she became ill.
The world still is the same. We'll never change it. Just as sure as the stars shine above. You are nobody till somebody loves you. So find yourself somebody to love.
Shall I fetch your truck around now, Granny? It's all fixed.
But what I'm doing now is I have found her masters. You know, a lot of masters that she cut.
Wow. On tape or something?
Yeah, and vinyl. You know, I don't know what, it's not on vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
They were masters. I don't know what you call it. And I'm going to I'm going to produce a CD of Joi's songs, and it'll be so cool because she was really, really good.
To be honest, I had seen Joi musically before I even know who she was. I actually lusted after Joi before I knew who she was.
You and
because
me both. Hello.
I saw her perform in the cheesiest, campiest video called The Web of Love.
Oh, is that the worst? It's great. It's so campy and it's so bad. It's wonderful.
Flapping his wings in a rage, I can't fly away. Clip my wings and I've got to stay.
Would that have been kind of towards the end too of because she looked like maybe in the 60s or something like that she did that?
Yeah, it was in the 60s. Yeah, and those were called, before there were music videos, there was a machine that they put in restaurants and bars called a scopatone. And what it was actual films of contemporary singers. And you put in, I don't know, it was a quarter or something, and you could, a person could put in a quarter. It's like a jukebox. And you put in your money, and you could watch your favorite singer sing a song. And Joi was one of the top recording artists for Scopatone, but they were so cheesy. They were so bad. Especially Web of Love is my favorite because it's so awful. And, I mean, the camera angles are on her boobs and
on her pelvis and
other
everything.
parts of her body. Yeah, zeroed in, and terrible dancers behind her and in bikinis. It was just, it's really campy. It's very funny. And she did The Silencer, which is good, and The Web of Love, and another one I can't remember. But The Web of Love, you can see that on YouTube. It's
all over
unbelievably
the place.
Funny.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
Back in the 70s or early 70s, I mean, we're talking pre-Three's Company here, right?
Right.
How did that go? I mean, when you discovered that you were gay,
right,
it was illegal, but I mean...
Oh, absolutely.
Did you go to bars or what? How did that work?
Yeah, there are a few bars in L.A. I was living at the Studio Club, and there were a few bars in L.A. There was one on Pico called the Mint, a woman's bar, and it was a tiny little seedy, dark, ugly little bar. But, you know, that's where women would go to meet other women or to feel like you're not alone in the world. And I found out about the place and I went there, and it was frightening because at that point, any bar, any gay bar, male or female, was a no-touch bar, which means you could not have any physical contact with anyone. In fact, if I sat there and held hands with someone, I'm not talking sexually, I'm just talking touching someone, the police could come and take you away.
Wow. Yeah. So
it was awful. It was awful.
This would have been, wait a minute, I'm trying to remember when Stonewall.
Yeah, 1968, yeah. Well, actually, Stonewall happened, 69. I believe it was 69, the year that I met Joi. Yeah, it was terrible. The police could come in anytime and roust you, take you away, harass, because it was considered immoral and illegal and disgusting. And thank God things are changing a little bit better.
I'm interested because your name changed over the ages a little bit.
No kidding. And talk about confusing, yes.
And you were Nancy Hunter, and then you were Rachel you were Nancy Hunter, and then Ivory Hunter for a while.
Oh, that was... it was a story I told Joi because we were going to move to Palm Springs, and I had a little experience in Palm Springs, and I had to tell her about it because Joi was high profile. Me being with her could have caused her problems because when I was living at the studio club, I was so green. I was just so naive. I went on a casting call, and suddenly I was going to be the star of a film. They decided I should be Ivory Hunter. So, okay.
So it sounds like a stripper's name or something, but go ahead.
It did, yeah. So I was Ivory Hunter, and this guy was a total con man. I went to Palm Springs, and the guy was ripping off people right and left. There was no real film. It was all fake. And so they put me on a bus and rode me out of town. They sent me away. They sent me back to L.A. on a one-way ticket.
Your roommate actually ended up visiting you in all these, progressively less fancy hotels, but in Palm Springs there. And she thought something was stinking about it because she was a little less green than you.
Yeah, and it started to make me nervous. And then suddenly these detectives take me away, and they told me to make a statement. And honey, I sang like a canary.
You used the whole notebook.
Yeah. Oh man, I was scared out of my mind. I was so young. I was, I think, 20.
Just to give the listeners some background here, they were basically using you as proof that they had a lead,
film, yeah,
right? Like an actress for the movie that they were planning on making, and they never did.
No, it was just bilking people out of money, trying to get investors. It was just awful.
I remember reading, and I'm like, oh my God, is something going to happen to her? Because they had driven you out into this country road where apparently you were afraid that the shocks on the car would just come springing off because the road was so bad, and going out
was terrible
into the country, and they had actually brought you to I guess a nudist or a naturalist
a nudist colony. And I'd never, in Kansas, they don't, none that I'm aware of. And there I am, everybody totally butt naked. And I'm just like, oh my God, okay, if this is being a movie star, okay.
Marilyn was very comfortable with her naked body, so I guess so, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, honey, I've had some great times. Interesting times.
On that day when she died of cancer, some of the press sources actually misreported her age, and they said that she was 37 instead of, I think, she would have been 43 just a few days after her birthday.
Yeah, she was 43. But she was so young, so tremendously young, and it's tragic, but Sean, she was so happy for the last few years of her life, so it was great.
She found her happiness towards the end, and she also found somebody who was probably a lot like she was at some point, and she was able to take you under her wing and sort of protect you in a way too. So although you were lovers, you were also friends, and in a way you were also maybe like sisters too.
Yeah, we were. She was wonderful. Sean, our relationship were like, if you can picture two little kids, it doesn't matter if male or female, best friends, whatever, just little kids having a great time playing, because that's what our life was just having a good time. We were just like little kids. There was an innocence about our relationship. The book is a happy book, John. It's a happy, happy book. And sure, there's some sad parts, but the majority of it's very happy.
I remember with my previous conversation with you off the air, you told me that IB program, the International Baccalaureate, had actually taken on your book. Is that right?
Yes, a teacher from one of the local high schools, Cathedral City High School, read my book and thought it would be absolutely perfect for her class. Kids now are able to grasp the book, and she thought it would be great for her kids so that, it could teach love and compassion and to hopefully stop some bullying that happens in schools.
Yeah.
And so it's now in the curriculum at this high school, and I would love to have my book in other schools to help kids. If I can help one kid, I would be so tremendously happy. I would love that. Just love that. And I'll be speaking to the kids, and I'll be doing Q&A with them, and that is something that is so very, very exciting. I'm thrilled out of my mind.
Dirtier minds from the past might think it's some sort of salacious erotica. There's no erotica about it. It's just the sheer love and joy and really living vicariously with all these experiences that you and Joi went through. I really thought I was there for the ride. It was fantastic that way.
I'm so glad. That makes me so happy, Sean.
I think that personally this would make a fantastic movie, and it really makes sense.
I'm hoping.
I'm surprised with such a phenomenal story how little people seem to understand or know how this amazing actress who started so young and only lived to be 43 years old, just blew up like a firework, like an explosion, and it just such a huge light. I would love to see a movie. Do you? Oh,
I would too.
Do you have any ideas about who you would want to play Joi if a movie was ever made?
Yeah. Well, she was so beautiful. There's a lot of serious and but lighthearted. Someone with the acting ability. I think anyone who could play Monster could do it. I think Charlize Theron would be great.
Okay.
What do you think, Sean? She's that beautiful. I mean, she doesn't have the assets. She doesn't have the assets, but they can create that in Hollywood. They can give her.
I think so. I mean, that's close, or maybe I was thinking maybe Scarlett Johansson, but I mean that
she could do it. She could do it too.
Similar facial there.
Yeah. And there are a few actresses that I think that have the dimension. I mean, you have to be a really, really good actress, really good to be able to play this, because there's so much happening, so many different.
You're playing an actress, being an actress, and then being a human. So the dimensions would be tricky.
Right. Yeah, it would be very tricky. I would love to see Jennifer Lawrence play me.
Yeah, that works well, actually, now that I think of it.
Wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be perfect? Yeah. The age is correct. I mean, well, Jennifer Lawrence is older than I was, but she looks young enough. Yeah, they could. And Charlize is, I think she's 43.
She is, yeah.
Right now. I think she is 43. I think what was really bizarre is I think, if I remember correctly, she was born on the same day Joi died.
Yes.
Not that year, a couple of years later.
I have it here. She was born August the 7th, 1975. So.
Right, and Joi died in 72 on August 7th.
Right, and it's interesting because she's and you want to start playing games. She's 43 now, and that would have been when Joi would have died. That's interesting.
Right, isn't that
a lot of that going on with this story?
Oh, I know. I'd love Charlize to read the book. I would love it. So anybody out there, if you know Charlize, give her a jingle and tell her to read the book, please. I'll send it to her. I'd be happy to send it to her.
Excellent.
But it would be great. It would be just great.
So, listen, I think that's about all for now. I mean, thanks so much for being on the show, Alexis.
Oh, thank you, Sean. Yeah, and if anybody would like to read the book, I hope you will. It's an ebook, it's softcover, hardcover, and it's also an audiobook, and it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and the publisher is Bear Manor Media.
Perfect.
So, You can find it anywhere.
I'll put links up. Thanks so much for being on the show, Alexis.
Oh, thank you so much, Sean. It's been a delight. You are a terrific host. Thank you.
So thanks so much for listening to that episode or watching on YouTube. I'll remind you that you can find links to all of this stuff over at shareaslicepodcast.com. You know, just as a parting thought, as I was doing research for this episode, I came across an interesting realization. So, Joi, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of pictures of Joi on the internet, a medium that didn't even exist when she was alive and, you know, didn't come into existence until decades after she died. And yet we have all these hundreds, if not thousands, of pictures. But one thing I was not able to find a single shred of was a single written word or spoken word from Joi Lansing. When I was doing my research, I was desperately looking for some sort of radio interview, a newspaper column, a story, some sort of interview on a set or anything at all, and or even a promo interview for one of her shows. And I mean, these things might exist out there, but if they do, they're not easily found on the internet. So the only words of Joi's that exist out there right now are ones that are contained within the books. This book in particular, by Alexis Hunter. Everything else, gone. It's just a real testament to the challenges, I guess, of being a woman back in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s in Hollywood, a place where all the multimedia of the country is basically concentrated. She was in multimedia. Her face was seen by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people across the country. Her voice was heard, but nowhere can I find any words of her actual own person, her mind, other than through this biography. So that was an interesting realization, a bit depressing, but I'm hoping that Joi's words live through Alexis's book. If anybody can represent what she said, it would be Alexis. So that's good to know. So anyway, leading out of this show, I'd like to play one last track by Joi Lansing called The Silencer. And this was another one of her scopitones, like The Web of Love. So the actual video itself is a little less cheesy, but the song is excellent. She has a wonderful, deep voice, and I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you'll be back next time as well. It could actually be, again, a week, 2, maybe 3, as I try to fill out the guest list. I'm experiencing some booking challenges. So bear with me. I will be back, and I'm looking forward to you guys listening to the next show. Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye.
Intro theme by The Fantastic Plastics. Outro theme copyright 2019 by Scott Moon.
Oh, a gun can be a 22 or a 38, and it will silence you, dear sir. That is a silencer. But if you should see a lady who has the kind of waist that measures 22, and she's 38 where it is great to measure 38, dear sir, she is a silencer. with my hips. I'll quiet you for good. I'll brush your lips and crush your lips and nicely hush your lips. Dear sir, I am as silent. Dear sir, don't stir, don't move, relax. Loosen your tie. Don't be afraid. Take off your shoes. Don't fight. Lean back. Relax. 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 Oh, sir.
What the hell do you think you're doing? Dragging your butt through the day, selling body and soul to a bunch of bland normals? Acting stupid so they'll think you're one of them? Tired of getting all of the guilt, but none of the sex? There is a simple answer, dear friend. A glowing beacon of slack amidst the turmoil and darkness. It's J.R. Bob Dobbs, the living slack master, and his church of the subgenius. Bob brings a new destiny for the abnormal. For Bob comes to justify our sins, to unmask the conspiracy, and to get us back the slack they stole away. It's us versus them. Are you gonna fry in hell on earth alongside the pink boys? Or will you pull the wool over your own eyes and accept Bob into your mind? Repent, quit your job, slack off, and praise Bob!
Church of the Subgenius, eternal salvation, or triple your money back.
You're not dreaming. You're here in the vast and technologically advanced OSI 74 studios, where my co-host Miss Mittens and I, your host Mr. Lobo, are getting ready to host a brand new season of Cinema Insomnia. But this time, we want to get you Cinsomniacs involved. Please come join us at our Patreon page, patreon.com/cinema-insomnia, where you'll find Mr. Lobo is making your new TV shows, and we're involving you in the process. Even at the dollar level, you will have access to exclusives that other Cinsomniacs aren't. You'll have access to Mr. Lobo that few Cinsomniacs get to enjoy. There'll be other perks at other tiers too. You'll be able to get props from the show, potentially. You'll be able to get your name in the credits, perhaps. Maybe you could bend steel bars with your bare hands, levitate cars, fly. I mean, think of it. Anything is possible if you come, be a part, and join our inner, sweet, double-stuffed, deep, salty, caramel, double-dipped, gooey center supercore. And Mr. Lobo's getting hungry all of a sudden, but look, you hit the subscribe bar, Mr. Lobo's going to hit the snack bar, and we'll see you later for a brand new season of Cinema Insomnia.